too.
I'm never going to not speak. You know, one of the things, the level of responsibility that I've undertaken, but when I was Attorney General, I had to have good talent. And he didn't mention he was a Harvard undergrad, Yale Law School graduate, and then a master's degree from Oxford and a PhD from Oxford, and a White House fellow, and they assigned him to me, and I said, this is the mother lode. I mean, this is a vein we're going to mine. And so we decided to do what we could and assigned him to the critical area of immigration. And he and I have had, since then, a lifetime worth for me of very pleasing effort in terms of maximizing the compliance with the laws of immigration. This whole business about Arizona is not to really have new laws. It's to just get compliance with the federal law. And when I was the Attorney General of the United States, and I sound like an old fogey saying, well, back when, but the truth of the matter is we did what we could to maximize compliance with the law. This administration has done everything it could, and it advertises the fact that it wants to minimize compliance with it. And one of the things, and this is a very interesting article, I believe, that you wrote in the Tulane Law Journal, if not, was it Tulsa or Tulane? Yeah. Tulsa Law Journal, was that when we sought to enforce the law, that the illegal immigrant population responded by self-enforcing. When they knew we were coming around to have checks and have requirements and that we would make demands that they be in compliance, they said, well, if they're going to do that, we're leaving. And there are people who are upset because people left, but I think in terms of Pakistanis, I think that was one of, there were something like 15,000 voluntary deportations among Pakistanis who said, now, I'm very pleased that people come to the United States from Pakistan, but they ought to come, like everybody else, they ought to come legally. We are a nation of laws. And when the President of the United States decides to suspend the operation of the laws, to me, that's unconscionable. And when individuals or institutions like states decide that they're going to do what they can to have the benefit of the laws passed, enacted, signed into law, to have the enforcement of those laws, that's the way this country ought to operate. We're a country of laws, not of lawyers, of laws. And I am a lawyer, but the rule of law does not mean the rule of lawyers who make a decision, well, we'll enforce this one and not that one. I'll talk about this a little bit tonight myself if you all don't walk out before I get there. But the point is that this is a human being that I had the privilege of representing most of you for about 35 years in government in one capacity or another. And I'm past that. I have about 5 young people that I'm trying to help around America, because I think the future needs incredibly high-octane talent that is understanding of the fundamental principles of America. And this is one of those individuals. My wife and I are devoted to his campaign. I've never made any gifts to anybody in Kansas. I was raised to hate Kansas. But we have made this case a priority, this candidacy, and this person a priority. He won't say it, and he shouldn't, but I would hope that Secretary of State is the beginning of an opportunity for him to serve, because he's solidly conservative. When we enforce the law, they always minimize. Well, there are 12 million illegal folks, or however many they're going to say now. The number is scary no matter what. If they said 3 million, it would scare the dickens out of me, but it's way over that. If they're 12 million. They say you can't get them all done. Well, and therefore, why do any of this? My view has always been, do what you can. And I think what the study that was published in the Tulsa Law Journal says, that if you do what you can, incredibly good things will happen in the arena that you probably couldn't have reached. They self-enforce. So I am very pleased that when the doctor called, we were talking about my chance to be here. They said, well, we got to have somebody besides you talking. And I said, well, you're right about that. I mean, look, you guys are known for telling it like it is. And I said, well, if you want somebody else, there's somebody I think you could have that would be right on target. You know, this is at the top of the discussion in the United States of America. Not that, you know, we all know that we're not against immigration. 3 out of 4 of my grandparents were born overseas. Even when we came to Springfield, I remember my grandfather spoke with such a thick Norwegian accent, you know. If I can't find a job in the United States, I go back to Minnesota, he used to say. But I remember Dickie Templeton one time came in. We were in the 4th grade, and he came in. I carried on a conversation with my grandfather, and Dickie and I went out in the yard, and Dickie looked at me and said, does your grandfather speak English? My grandfather had been speaking English the whole time. We're not against immigration. We're immigrants. All of us are immigrants. But we are people of the law before we're anything else. That's what I think separates us from the tyrannies of those who make up laws and impose them on their own, which is the greatest of all tyrannies, or just outright savagery. Freedom is guarded by the law, and if we don't like the laws, we ought to change them. And if we don't want to enforce them, we ought not to suspend them. They ought to be changed. And so this is the future, in my judgment. I'm here, at least at this hour, to encourage you to understand the value of people like this. We have them in Missouri. This is just one who worked for me for 2 years at the Justice Department, and I never... there was never a moment's sorrow associated with the performance or the understanding of this person. So you should grill him. He knows more about this than probably anybody else in the United States.
The Attorney General said the MRA is known for calling it like it is. And in that vein, we have presented to Professor Kovac a white paper that's in front of you. And we'd like to get his opinion on it. And I would like, since Darren Chappell was good enough to write this, I would like him to explain it and phrase the question, if you would, Darren.
Well, first of all, I appreciate the opportunity to have written this.